Hey, we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions on the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Greedfall. We're a little late on this one, but we're taking a quick look. And this is by far, believe it or not, one of my most requested Before You Buys in a while. Like, my Instagram DMs and Twitter have been blowing up just out of sheer curiosity for this game. So thanks for that, guys. I actually appreciate how much you'd care to see our videos. So now, at a glance, for Greedfall, the concept seems amazing. I think there needs to be a big disclaimer about this game right up front. This might not be quite the game some of you think it is. Don't go in expecting a massive, insanely well-crafted AAA RPG. I've seen a lot of those expectations out there, but I kind of want to cut them off right now. Ultimately, I think Greedfall is okay. It's a pretty decent game, but only for certain types of RPG and systems fans, and players who can accept a lot of flaws while loving and embracing other aspects. Ultimately, I still think it's worth it. This is the name of the game, really, for this developer and publisher combo. It's published by Focused Home Interactive, and this is developed by Spiders, a French development company. I always focus my attention on their games for some reason. I've always really been into following their work. Their games are odd and usually have some freaking really cool things about them while being laughably bad in others. Case in point, more recently, The Technomancer, or its predecessor, Mars Warlogs, or even Bound by Flame, a game I admitted to liking and playing completely through, and I was actually laughed out of the room by my peers a few years ago, and I'm still not over it. Hey, but I get it. These games are rough around the edges and clearly stretching a budget, but I think they need to exist. We can't just have straight-up indie games and then big, massive AAA games that everyone complains about. We need the middle guys trying other things, like those B-level games, those AA games. We've had them in every console generation, but they're slowly disappearing. But that's my lukewarm take. Back to it. With this developer, Greedfall seems to be their best work yet. It carries a lot of seemingly odd, should have been avoidable flaws, probably, but takes some of the cooler elements from their previous games and combines it with some really cool world building and art direction to make it an interesting and very fun but slightly flawed playthrough at the very least. Sorry if that was kind of a long-winded intro. I just feel weirdly passionate about this one. I don't know. So this game is a third-person action-adventure RPG set in open environments. You play as a nobleman tasked with venturing out into the new world to help with establishing a new society or colony that's kind of already there in progress and making peace with the natives, sort of, and ultimately finding a cure for a horrible disease that's tearing apart your homeland. Now, you spend some time in the mother city at the start for quite a while if you want, and then you set sails to discover Tier Freddy, the new world. What's most unique is that this is all a pretty refreshingly new vibe here. It's pirates and 1700s colonial stuff, but with a fantasy twist. The new world is inhabited by sort of elf native woods tribes, sort of, and big nasty monsters. Now, without spoiling anything, the overall lore kind of touches on expansion and colonization and society dealing with the people's need to always attempt to take on a new world and failing multiple times to do so. But it's an interesting way of how it goes about it. The old world here is dying. Time to go to a new one. But the new one has other plans, and it's been tired of your shit. Basically, it kind of makes you the sort of neutral party and throws you in a society of merchants, royalty, mercenaries, natives, and sailor folk, and makes you question a bunch of decisions. The game makes it kind of easy to see where a lot of these groups are coming from, what their deal is, and it's genuinely fun to think and make decisions throughout the game. They're hard, and the grand idea here is awesome. Less so in the moment-to-moment stuff. You have some generic characters with forgettable faces, but there are a few standouts. Once the game gets in its groove, at least. It does the one thing I don't like where it introduces you to way too many people really quickly, and it takes some time to figure out who the hell actually, one, matters, and two, is worth paying attention to. But the companions you bring into battle are the best, and you can essentially work on them and their loyalty, kind of like Mass Effect characters, and you can even let them carry on certain conversations on their own, if it makes sense, and you can manage their equipment. In battle, you can't manage them too much, and I would have liked more of that, but they are pretty capable on their own. Now, with your little merry group, it's up to you to manage how you want to take on missions and side quests. You trying to sneak in the back door, maybe pick a few locks, set a trap for some monsters, then maybe hide in the bushes, or maybe talk your way into a base, or kill everyone all the time. or disguise yourself as a faction and take advantage of the pretty much full disguise system, which is something I always appreciate in RPGs like this as an underrated thing. Regardless, I just love these aspects because I didn't expect them, and I think it can encourage a little replayability. Sometimes I think I'm skipping through stuff when I sneak in the back way, but I feel smart, or just like when I just kill everyone and I'm missing out on stuff when I could be having an interesting conversation, but I think that's a good feeling. It makes me want to go back. But these different approaches are important because you often have to worry about who you're pissing off and who you're making happy thanks to the faction stuff. You have a standing with each of them, and the disguise system and the conversation system can come into play. It's nice to have a few added stakes to open-ended mission design other than just, well, I snuck in because I like stealth. You know what I mean? And flexible character leveling up and progression lets you experiment and go in different avenues, and it's mostly satisfying. You don't have to just be a ranged character or specifically just a mage character, which, thank God, because the magic, there isn't really much to it. I'll get to that with the combat stuff, but there's 3 different avenues to progress and dump points into at different levels. Then there's basic stuff, there's some perk stuff, and there's ability stuff. Now, I'm generalizing it, I'm glossing over it a little bit, but you do level up and change at a pretty satisfying pace. It doesn't go super quick, but it's also not a horrible grind either. I like when a game like this can find a nice middle ground. You can map items and abilities and equip and swap through multiple weapons too. So if you want to bounce between, say, a dagger and a heavy axe, you can do that. There's a nice degree of freedom here, and it's a lot of fun in the armor system. I love this. There's hats, pants, gloves, boots, jackets, and a necklace area to put on your character to, increase their armor ratings and get your classic RPG perk stuff. The good stuff has slots where you can craft items to add onto your armor. So if you have enough stuff and are decent at crafting leveled up, you can add cool shoulders to that coat or take ordinary gloves and then give them some chainmail. It's nice to stick with a regular piece of armor or a set jacket for a bit and just build it up into something badass instead of swapping every 2 minutes when you pick something up. Bound by Flame had something sort of similar, and it's way more satisfying here. You can become a colonial badass man or woman, kind of something that Fable 3 promised but sort of fell short on. I'll never give that up as a diehard Fable fan, but I digress. And I don't usually structure my before you buys by saving all of the bad stuff towards the end. But I don't know, this is kind of how this one flowed. I'm letting it happen naturally. So I don't like the combat. I like the RPG elements of it, the fact that you can pause the battle to change out or use abilities, items, and stuff like that. And I love the way the characters of different classes actually sort of support you and can play their role at times. But the moment-to-moment dodging, the unlockable rolling, the parrying, and just simple striking and stunning just kind of leaves a lot to be desired. It's technically okay, it's passable, but I just got bored extremely quickly, which is a shame because I'm not bored of anything else in the game, but it's a big one, I also found that the camera had a habit of fighting me way too often. Even in open environments, it still managed to screw me over on occasion and act annoying and get stuck on something just as an enemy swings at me and gets an easy hit without me seeing. But, the unsatisfying combat, partly due to a lack of interesting enemy type variety, is a big aspect of the game, and it's just one I'm not down with. It gets a little better further in as it gets more complicated, but it still just wasn't enough for me personally. Bigger bad guys can occasionally make it a bit more exciting and thrilling, but basically, it just boils down to this. I love the game's RPG systems, I just do not love the combat. Also, from a technical aspect, I think it's worth pointing out the issues I faced. Odd glitches, random dips in frame rate, getting stuck in the environment and having to restart, and the occasional broken character during a dialogue moment or a messed up face. All of this stuff is worth pointing out. I'm the type of player, personally, that I can shrug a lot of this stuff off, but when there's a lot of it, I do think it's at least worth pointing out in my videos for some of the pickier players. And on the PC version, which I played here, there's definitely a lot of messiness going on. It's a shame, though, because otherwise the game looks decent. It's not going to blow the doors down or anything. It's not like the next-gen ray tracing game. But the art style really makes up for it. The detail and the look of environments is really damn impressive. And it literally enticed me to explore. That sounds so corny, but it's for real. It's not usually the case, but I mean it. I wanted to always just stop and look around. The cities especially often made me say, wow, out loud. The buildings, the skylines, the dark detailed alleyways always manage to look really cool and just look like great concept art come to life, which is one of my favorite things I've always said. Now on the bad side, I've seen a lot of really bland looking drab interiors. that are just copy and pasted, which is a bummer, and they're really disappointing looking and kind of break the look and immersion of the game. And that, plus generally NPCs give the place no life whatsoever. You could barely interact with random civilians or bump into them even. Like, they just kind of slowly walk around as fodder, doing nothing, and occasionally, glitching and walking only once they come into frame. It's a shame because the environments themselves look so lived in. It's just the actual people there aren't really doing much of anything at all to convince me. So the game definitely shows its budget in spots. Some of the negatives are harsh, but the more I play and talk about this game, the more I like it. It's got a unique feeling to it, and although it may frustrate you at points, it's also probably not like many other things you've played. It's slightly lower priced, and if you're skeptical, I'd say maybe hold down a bit longer for things to get patched and fixed, and maybe the price slightly lower. But hardcore RPG fans and PC gaming fans who are willing to put up with some awkward bullshit aspects for the sake of the game and some of the better elements, might actually find a lot to like here. Some of you may not want to hear that, I don't know, but I like Greedfall, and I'm not really sorry about it, even with its flaws. But of course, that's a before you buy. You know how this works? I give you some first impressions, some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. If you're playing Greedfall, what do you think so far? Reviews, critics, fans, everybody's divided on this one. Honestly, that to me makes me more excited to check out a game, and I'm glad I did it with this one, but I want to know what you guys are thinking. If you got anything else for me at all, be sure to hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Baldino. I'll try and answer as many of you as I can. But it's also important, I just want to point out, if you enjoyed this video and maybe learned something, maybe we helped you out, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We'd really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. But be warned, man, we put out videos every single day. Regardless, as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.